Oh, it's a tale as old as time. Red versus blue, or in this case, actually, red versus green. Yes. House Montague versus House Cap. I mean, Radeon versus GeForce. Woo, Battle Royale. Isn't this. Is this how you YouTube? You got the fake outrage and the. I don't know. So the battle royale today is the 5700 XT from AMD. This is a Radeon 5700 XT versus the 2070 Super, the GeForce RTX. Now, not exactly a fair fight, but kind of is, but kind of not. I mean, the GeForce RTX 2070 Super is about $100 more than the 5700 XT. And there's a couple of different ways that we can break down this competition or break down this interface. And the first is, acoustics and physical design. This is a reference card. It uses a blower. It can get loud, especially when you're pushing the clocks. Look at this, the 2070 Super. This thing is chonk. Triple fan design, but you can still run SLI. Yeah, 2070 with an SLI. So I feel like we have to back up a minute here. So the 2070 Super is a version of the 2070 from NVIDIA that is faster than a stock 2070. In fact, it's almost as fast as a 2080, like regular 2080. There's also the 2080 Super, and we'll get to that. But this is an upgrade over the 2070 because this plucky little card with its blower and its little dent can outperform a GeForce RTX 2070. But the 2070 Super takes things up a notch. It's a tit for tat. It's a sort of a fun situation. I mean, so AMD sent me this card, and MSI sent me this card to take a look at, and no restrictions or anything like that. It's just here, take a look at our card. Let's know what you think. So this was part of the press kit for AMD 7.7 launch. We've covered that. There's a lot of videos on that. There's a lot of cool stuff the 5700 XT can do. You should take a look at that. It's a blower style card. That means there are companies like MSI and Sapphire and other companies are going to produce versions of this card that improve on the blower. They were debated, NVIDIA was. And that was the guy that was in charge at AMD that said, okay, we were planning to release these at a lower price all along. And I don't know, maybe not, I don't know. They gave the media and other people sort of pre-release information as to what the prices were before they were officially announced to the public. And then they were announced to the public, I think at E3, and then the 2070 Super, because AMD knew that NVIDIA had something waiting in the wings. And so the 2070 Super is tuned specifically to be just a hair faster than the 5700 XT. And it is just a hair faster than the 2700 XT, but it also costs $100 more. But keep in mind, this is a reference model, and this is the model from MSI. And so that actually puts partners in a little bit of a more difficult position, because while this card is $399, you think that, Sapphire and other companies like that are putting a lot of work into their rumored, higher end cooling solutions than a blower style cooler on here. That those companies that are putting more work into their cooler want a little bit of margin. Is it going to be $50 less expensive than the 2070 Super, or the same price as the 2070 Super? Will the AIB partners be able to eke out a little bit more performance out of the 5700 XT? I don't know, because there have been people that have dumped more power into the 5700 XT by modding it, and I guess those are soft mods, soft power tables, and they've been able to get it up to 2.2 gigahertz under liquid. But for us today, thermals and power and acoustics, the 2070 Super takes the crown in all of those for performance for the 5700 XT. It also takes the crown in terms of raw gaming performance. So we tested a bunch of different games, and the pattern pretty much played out, but I want to call attention especially to Monster Hunter World and Shadow of the Tomb Raider, because these are kind of exemplars. And we ran a lot more testing than we're really showing in the video, but not enough testing that it makes sense to spend the time to do something to the nth degree to be like, okay, this game performs this way and this game performs that way, and that, Gamers Nexus and Hardware Unboxed, they do a really good job with that. I wouldn't really be doing anything new and interesting, but I do have, there's some ifs and there's some ands and there's some buts. So clearly the superior card in terms of design, clearly the superior card in terms of cooling, and it's a get more, get more situation. $100 more, but you get a little bit more performance. You get a much better blower and cooling design. You get a much more cool looking card if you're into that kind of thing with the RGB and that sort of thing. It is a chunk of a card. It really is. The only place where NVIDIA is really caving in on itself, I think, is with the creative side. So NVIDIA has released creator drivers, which are a little more stable and a little more geared toward things like content creation, video content creation with Adobe Premiere and Resolve and things like that on the Windows platform. And NVIDIA is, I think, I don't have any proof of this, but I suspect that NVIDIA is trying to segment their market a little bit. So if you're doing creative video production and like you're a YouTuber, they don't care if you're using a gaming graphics card. But you start to get into a little bit more complicated projects. Maybe you're using a little bit of After Effects for YouTube videos because you're getting fancy. The driver is problematic. And to try to meet creators halfway, we have the creator driver, which is not really even called the creator driver anymore. It was called the initially it was called the creator driver. Now I think it's the studio driver, but it's a different version of the driver for your NVIDIA graphics card, which, by the way, if you've been having crashes in Premiere, you want to go install that instead of the gaming driver because it'll fix you right up. AMD is not pulling any of these shenanigans. Not on Vega, not on Radeon 7, and not now on the 5700 XT. For creative workloads, the 5700 XT just works, and it is a beast. My friend at the ePost Vox channel, Adam, he did some really cool stuff with the 5700 XT and streaming and content creation. Now, there are some bugs around H.264 especially. I'm hoping that AMD is working through those bugs, but for H.265 transcoding and just using Premiere and Resolve and those kinds of things, the performance of this card is beastly. It will outperform a 2080 and even a 2080 Ti in some of those transcoding workloads. He's got a video that's got more information and more detail about that. But in terms of like strictly gaming workloads and that sort of thing, GeForce RTX 2070 Super. I think also that if you're just getting into machine learning, that the ecosystem around CUDA and NVIDIA's tools and the things that they allow in a residential environment with their RTX card is actually pretty interesting. I mean, RTX, so you get tensor cores, and the tensor cores are pretty cool, and you get the real-time ray tracing. You don't really get any of that on the AMD platform, and so if you're getting into machine learning or you're a computer science student or something like that, there is some cool stuff that you can do with the hardware that's in your graphics card. So you can game a little bit by day or machine learning by night. Well, that's what it would, I guess that's, for a YouTube channel, that's kind of what it is, but for a computer science student, it's probably machine learning by day, gaming by night, right? Not sure. OpenCL Compute, by contrast, on Navi or on RDNA is lagging a little bit behind. OpenCL is still beastly on the Radeon 7, although the Radeon 7 now is pretty much end of life. So I feel bad for the people that bought a GeForce RTX 2060, and I feel bad for the people that bought a Radeon 7, unless you're using the Radeon 7 for creative workloads. The RTX 2060 people definitely got the shortest end of the stick because regular 2070 is not super. Price cuts and discounts, probably temporary, but it's a really interesting situation. Performance of the RTX 2070 Super, the MSI RTX 2070 Super, the Gaming X Trio, this is a monster card. The performance here is insane. And that's even before we get to overclocking. So we did the benchmarking without doing any of the overclocking. If you use the OC scanner, which is basically an automatic overclock tool from NVIDIA, you're gonna squeeze even more performance out of this. I was surprised at how much extra overhead I could get out of the 2070 Super with the overclock scanner. It put me over the top in terms of parity for the reference edition 2080 and probably even the founders edition 2080. That's not a guarantee. That's not saying that you're going to encounter that level of overclockability with your RTX 2070 Super, but the cooling solution on this managed to keep the card cool even though I was dumping a lot more power into it than really I probably should. So nice job, MSI. I wouldn't be surprised if you see this card in a future build. If you think I got anything wrong, or you want to share pictures of your build or whatever, you're trying to debate between these two cards, I mean, this is the better gaming card for raw performance. But with this card, you get some of those creative perks. It's $100 cheaper. Check out EpostVox if you want to see more streaming benchmarks and crap like that on the 5700 XT side, because it is actually genuinely very interesting. A lot of cool stuff. If it were me, I would probably wait for the non-blower version of this card minimally if it was interesting, but that price gap I think is going to narrow. I don't think that there are going to be companies that are selling a 5700 XT with a nice cooler for substantially less than the 2070 Super. I hope I'm wrong, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. I'm Wendell, this is Level 1. If you decide to pick up one of these or you want to show off your build, join us in the forums at Level 1. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on there, and a lot of exciting things. I'll see you later.